I want to hear cannons. Three-step drop, goes on the end zone. Caught ball, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans reaches up with one hand and grabs it in. Here they go again. Timbo mode, dropping to throw. Winston out, got those to the left. It's intercepted into the 35. Outside the numbers to the 40, to the 35, to the 30, to the 25, to the 20, to the 15-10. Mike Edwards, touchdown Tampa Bay. That's the dagger, my friend.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
35-7, your final score from Santa Clara in Levi Stadium. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall victim to rookie quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy in the San Francisco 49ers. And their record falls to 6-7 on the year. This might be one of the shortest podcasts we have ever done because I really don't know what there is to really say about this football game that we just watched. It was a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. It is a little after 7:45 p.m., so we are just now starting the pod, which means not only did Tampa Bay get dominated in one of the worst games so far they've had this year, it seemed like it took damn near forever. But welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish. How you feeling after that?
Yeah, it's me and you were talking a little bit before the show, and we both kind of agreed. Yes, we had the Bucs, in a close game. I expect them to be more competitive, but after that first 49ers drive, you kind of felt that the game might turn out a little bit that way. Just the way things sort of went after that opening penalty, which obviously we'll get into all that stuff, but yeah, obviously, whenever you're getting dominated like that, no matter where it's at home or away or whatever, it's not good. And they keep trying to find answers to the same test, and they just can't do it. So the funny thing is they're still first in the NFC South, but it's a shame that the NFC South just sucks because they still have that to look at. Right, they still have that to. Well, at least there's that, which they haven't earned that right though.
And let me ask you a question, because even with the losses that have piled up so far this year, every single week we've had the opportunity to look at the Bucs and say, well, big picture, still first place in the NFC South. You can't be too upset with that because as long as you hang on to that, you do have a playoff spot. But in a couple of weeks, they're playing a Panthers team who already beat them this year, and I believe is on track to beat the Seahawks if they have not already, which means after this week, they have sole possession of second place in the NFC South. Hey, and really quick, a $5 super chat from our buddy Matt Diaz says at least they played complimentary football today. So with that being said, it's safe to...
about the 49ers?
Right, yeah. The Bucs complimented...
The Panthers did win, by the way.
Yeah, so the Panthers right now, sole possession of second place in the NFC South. Even with the Bucs loss, I think the Bucs at 6-7, Panthers at 5-8, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, believe so.
Yeah. So with that being said, by the time the Bucs play Carolina once again, they have another division game against Atlanta. But if Carolina sweeps you, what the hell are they going to do? It's one of those things where I don't know how faithful I am in this team to win 2 out of those 2 final division games they have. If you win those, then it's a wrap. You get a playoff spot. Yes. You get a home playoff game. Hell, I feel like you can almost beat Carolina and lose to Atlanta and still limp in with first place in the NFC South. But, this was just an uninspired performance today. And like you had said, the Bucs are stuck answering the same question that they have answered all year. So here we are following a 35-7 loss. Where do you want to start breaking this game down?
Yeah, so real quick, yeah, they could lose, and we knew this coming in, but it's not obviously the way you want to go into the playoffs. They could lose to the 49ers, to the Bengals next week, and to the Cardinals, and it wouldn't matter as long as they won those last 2 games. But you'd feel pretty, slimy, I guess, going into the playoffs like that. That's so obviously, they don't want to do that. And today, definitely doesn't help with anybody's confidence that they can even make the playoffs, because the road just got a lot tougher now with Carolina there. Yeah, obviously, I think we got to start it when the game was at least somewhat competitive, even though that was a short amount of time. Obviously, the first penalty. Look, um, we talk a lot about the roughing the passers things. They suck. The rules suck. They're always going to suck. Was it the right call? By definition, yes. Should it be the right call? No, because the rules should be completely different. But by rule, that's the right call, even though you don't really love it. So to me, that changed the whole game. Instead of a 2nd and 18, 2nd and 19, it not only gave the 49ers a first down, but it gave them a free 15. And after that, the 49ers offense really marched down the field with ease. I know the Bucs gave them a little bit of a third down there. The Bucs decided to send some pressure to Purdy early, which I understand the thought process. You want the rookie quarterback, to face that pressure, but he was really good last week against the Dolphins pressure. So I would have sat back and played a little bit more coverage than they did. But, and then obviously, we can talk about the other, obvious penalty, which was a little bit less questionable. The Donovan Smith hold, which would have tied the game on the Mike Evans wide open touchdown, and maybe gave Evans some confidence. After that dropped touchdown versus Carolina,
it would have
he
been
seemed to lost confidence. That could have really. He was pretty pumped, and then it's pretty demoralizing for a football team.
It would have been Mike Evans' first touchdown in 9 games for the Buccaneers. We talk about the turning point in the season on offense. It gave you shades of that play against Carolina. Now, I know he didn't reel that in for the 60-plus yard touchdown like he should have, and he was able to grab this one. But let's talk about Donovan Smith for a minute, because he is obviously going to be feeling the flames of Bucs fans for weeks to come. He's already been under pressure for years here, and a couple of mediocre years does not negate him of any criticism, because he does lead the NFL among offensive linemen for holding penalties since he has come into the league. So,
to be fair, he's also played, I think, like almost every single game of tackles, eligible tackles. So that helps as well. When you're playing a lot, you're naturally going to get more, but still not good. And it's a second straight week he's cost them a touchdown.
In the last 2 weeks, he has cost the Buccaneers 2 touchdowns. Luckily they had a chance to go out there and run it again against the Saints on Monday Night Football, but Rachaad White got that touchdown with 3 seconds left. Who's to say that that's the play where the holding call is, and you don't have quite as much time to go out there and try and run that thing again?
What if they don't score that touchdown, and then they're
sitting if they don't, they're sitting at 0 points. So let's shift the conversation now. I know we're talking about Donovan Smith, and people are going to have plenty to say about him. He's not. Fact of the matter is, he's not the only Buck that didn't execute the way that they needed out there today. So this isn't going to be the Rail Donovan Smith show as much as we would like it to be. It's not the time nor the place for that. Let's talk about it.
Here's the thing real quick on Smith. I just want to get this out really
Go ahead. Yeah.
I've said for a while that he's gotten a ton of hate, especially when Jameis was here and stuff, when he was a younger player and stuff. He's gotten a ton of hate and everything. And I've said for a while, and I still believe this. He's an average, sometimes above average left tackle. Sometimes he's below average. Right now, he's playing at a below average level.
Donovan Smith, to me, and this is just my surface analysis, I think a lot of people may agree. I can tell you a lot of people aren't going to agree with what you said. But recency bias in the NFL is a very real thing. I think Donovan Smith is a below average player. I think he is a below average. I think he always has been. I think when you're playing next to guys like he has been playing next to these past couple of years, it's going to do you some favors, right? Look at Nick Leverett today. I know it was a penalty, but Nick Leverett saved that play on the one penalty that got brought back. He pretty much saved Brady from certain death. And when you look at everyone else on that line as well, you are who you play around. And look at the offensive line today. It almost went exactly the way we thought it would. Josh Wells was getting beat like a drum. There was one play where a flag ended up whistling the play dead, and he still got beat, and Brady still got knocked down to the ground. Right? Like the play had been whistled dead 2 seconds in, and Josh Wells was so far out of position that the linebacker was able to fall down and still pretty much just tackle Tom Brady after the play was over.
And here's the thing about Smith's contract.
I've
seen that's the market. Okay, that's just you look at some left tackles, that's what left tackles get paid. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it just is. Donovan Smith is not the highest paid left tackle in the league, but he's also obviously not the lowest. That's just what it is. That's the going rate for the market for that type of player. It doesn't, and I've long defended Smith, but I mean right now, obviously you're not going to defend him because right now he's playing some brutal football. And he's hurting the team. He's costing them. He's doing the worst thing you can do as an offensive lineman. He's costing them points on
taking
the board.
points off the board, not just 1 week, but 2 weeks in a row.
And I think that today, I think that was his only penalty, but it was a pretty costly one. I mean, who knows?
No, he had another false start, I believe.
I didn't think he did, but okay.
Yeah, they called his name later in the game, and I only remember that because I laughed my ass off when they did, because I knew everybody was thinking the same thing I was.
Who knows what happens if that game is 7-7 right there? Who knows what happens the rest of the way there? The Bucs, they finally break through with that big play. Who knows what happens? The entire game could have been different. So, just like you said, we're not going to harp on one player, because when you lose 35-7, it's not just Donovan Smith's fault. He's not the only guy. I think it's. Yeah, I don't know. It's just when you lose 35-7, there's way more than one or even two things that you can talk about, people to blame and stuff.
Yeah, and penalties, to be honest with you, they cost the Bucs more than one play today. It wasn't just the 66-yard touchdown that was negated. It was an Anthony Nelson interception later on in the game. It was the first play of the game. Keanu Neal with a huge sack to open things up. That would have put them back way at like 2nd and 18. Just like you said, it's not even the penalties. Like, I think they finished with 6 or 7 penalties today, which is still a lot. Like, if you're giving up over 50 yards of field on penalties in the day, it's probably not going to be a great outing for you. But it wasn't like it was that sloppy of a game. It was just the most crucial moments. The worst times. And that has happened all year. It's unfortunate.
Well, that Anthony Nelson penalty was
I know. No, I agree.
I mean, come on. You're going to call that on Carlton Davis, but the previous drive was the Bucs drive where they didn't call that on Chris Godwin.
Right.
Like, are you serious right now?
I thought there were a couple of plays where, I mean, even Brady was pleading his case with the officials. That's not breaking news for him in a Bucs uniform, but like there were a couple of times where, he totally should have gotten the call. Whether it was that one linebacker literally choking him out while wrestling him to the ground, or it was, the other roughing the passer that we saw, or the defensive pass interference that we did not see.
And just to get this straight, we're not saying, the Bucs probably we're still going to lose this game.
No. I don't think penalties did not lose the game for Tampa Bay. Don't get it twisted.
If the game was 35-32, then maybe then you can make that argument. But yeah, when you lose 35-7, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. Oh, the refs cost them the game. The Bucs themselves cost them the game. However, you also have to acknowledge that the refs in this game were just awful.
Yeah,
awful.
No, they were bad. Really quick before we talk about this coaching staff, wanted to get some injury updates out there. Bucs corner Jamel Dean, who left with a toe injury, has a left foot in a boot in the locker room. And then Todd Bowles also had no injury updates on Vita Vea, who left with a calf injury. Jamel Dean, who we just talked about, and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. It's also too early to tell if Tristan Wirfs is going to be able to go next week against Cincinnati. So let's talk about this Buccaneers coaching staff. We talked about the offense. It's hard to harp on... I mean, it's really hard to harp on one player when you lose 35-7 like you did. And the one touchdown that they had, a touchdown catch by Russell Gage, Tom Brady's 100th passing touchdown as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Yeah, it was a fluke, and they wanted to take it off of the board. Luckily, they didn't. Targeted Chris Godwin. Ball goes up in the air. Russell Gage able to reel it in. Right place, right time. Without that, the Bucs have 0 points today. So the one touchdown that they had was a fluke. For the first time in what seems like the entire season, Todd Bowles up on the podium actually took some accountability today. He said the Bucs were outcoached and, quote, got their asses kicked on offense and defense in a 35-7 loss on the 49ers. So I'm going to be honest with you.
But he said that he's always, coach has got to coach it better.
Yeah, sure.
That's his line.
Sure. But, let me ask you this. You want to talk about taking accountability. I don't know how the Bucs, and I know that we spent a lot of time with Sean King. We talked about it after the Monday Night Football game. We spent a lot of time this week justifying Todd Bowles' decision to not let go of Byron Leftwich any sooner.
David Cardona in the chat makes a valid point there.
Let me hear it.
Makes a valid point. Wanish ball greater than signed Bowles ball. I think so.
Yeah, well, Wanish ball isn't coward ball, but while we are on the topic of Todd Bowles ball and Byron Leftwich football, I don't know how you can justify another week of this guy being your offensive coordinator. I totally understand the position that Todd Bowles is in. We talked about it on the game preview show. You know, it is a risk to hire from within right now because how much better is the next guy going to be?
Yeah.
Realistically. And if you are Todd Bowles and you want to make a move at offensive coordinator throughout the offseason, you're going to want to break that coaching tree. There's nobody in the building right now that you're going to want to bring in to be your offensive coordinator. So with that being said, I think Todd Bowles literally just needs to nut up or shut up and just quit putting up with this shit. Like, why are we doing this week after week? Why are we trying to justify this Bucs team almost scored no points today? They scored 3 points against the Carolina Panthers. Like, what? This is a pattern. You know, the fact that they aren't scoring touchdowns. I know Tom Brady threw 2 interceptions today. We talked about the costly penalties, and it felt like Murphy's Law was in full effect today, where if anything could go wrong for the Bucs, it did. But Jesus Christ, 7 points. You know, there's no excuse, and I don't understand why they haven't pulled the trigger, because I talked about a little while ago, the biggest thing about this coaching staff that scares me to death, that I just don't have faith in them anymore because of, is their complacency. And you and I both know that Todd Bowles is just going to accept this until the end of the year. We are not going to move on from Byron Leftwich. And to be honest with you, I literally cannot understand why. There is just nothing reputable he has brought to the table. Even in fucking wins, Evan. Even in wins. It's not like we can go out there and credit Byron Leftwich for putting together a great game plan in the second half last week to rally in the final 4 minutes against New Orleans. Like, that was on Tom Brady calling the fucking plays out of no huddle. Like, that's who we credited for the comeback. I don't understand why this guy is still taking up an offensive coordinator spot. There's no place for him in Tampa.
I can't really say much to it. You know, I agree. Just like you said, though, they're not going to. Like, if it was gonna happen, it would have happened. One, I think the pressure was legit on him after that Baltimore game. And then Brady saved them versus the Rams. And then they actually looked decent against the Seahawks. Like, their process was decent. They were running play action more. So I think, those 2 games, and then you had the bye week. Like, I think if they would have lost those 2 games, I think they would have made a change over the bye week. However, they didn't. And, they had a lot of life. And then Cleveland was, and then, New Orleans, besides the last 2 drives, was pretty ugly, and then obviously today. So the 49ers defense is really good, and that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing when the Bucs face a really good defense, that's what it looks like. There is no, 2 touchdowns on the final 2 drives. No, that doesn't happen because the 49ers defense, I think, is the best in the NFL. But it's tough because, just like you said, does Todd Bowles want to, because you're not going to hire somebody from outside. You'd be running a whole new offense with 4 games left. Like, no, you're not going to do that. So it would be somebody from the inside, somebody who's already there. And so they're the offensive coordinator for 4 or 5 games, and then you move on and get another guy. Like, I understand, what you're saying, and I agree. And if I had to guess, I would not expect Byron Leftwich to be this team's offensive coordinator next year. I don't expect that. But I agree that the accountability is something that is not there. And, doing something like that could also send a message to your team that, it's not going to be tolerated. And when you when you hold on to a guy like that after the results just aren't there, right? Like, if this, if they came out of the bye week and they scored 30 against Cleveland and they scored 30 last week, you'd be like, all right, 7 points. That's an ugly game, but you've been doing really well. Let's put it past you. Yeah. But when it's becoming, like you said, a pattern of it happening multiple times this year, and I've defended Leftwich a bunch over the past 2 years, but right now, it's becoming impossible to defend the guy because it's getting bad.
The proof is in the pudding. This is an offense that was averaging 30 points per game. I'm pretty sure an NFL high just a season ago. Like, what the fuck? What are we doing? What are we doing? Just like you said, you set a precedent. You set a precedent, you set an example, and you tell everybody in the organization, this is acceptable. This is what we're going to roll with week after week after week. And, I know that cutting players and cutting coordinators is a hell of a lot different. But, I mean, I hate to say it. I know that they're boys. But if Byron Leftwich, if Bruce Arians is head coach of this team, I don't think Byron Leftwich is your offensive coordinator. I think Bruce believes.
I think the offense is better if Bruce.
I think the offense is a lot better. You know what? You're right.
So then they wouldn't have to fire Byron.
Right, exactly. Then we wouldn't even be having.
Bruce Arians said, I think, the impact that Byron Leftwich actually had. I think he undersold the impact that himself had to try and talk up Leftwich. I'm not saying he was lying. I just think he didn't really realize how much impact he had on Leftwich.
He's also a coach who knew what he was doing when he said those things. You know what I mean? Like that's his guy. And that happens in any workance. It doesn't matter what industry you work in. Yeah. If you know a guy, he's going to have nothing but great things to say. You know what I mean? That's how 99% of people in the media get their jobs, is they know a guy. So for right now, Byron Leftwich knows a guy. And that guy is, I mean, unfortunately for us and the Buccaneers offense, Byron Leftwich knows a guy, which means he'll probably have a job for the rest of the regular season. I don't know what else to say.
So here's the thing, and here's my stance on a lot of it, because I know this question is going to come up a lot. So that's why I want to sort of address that. And then we can move on to one last topic that will, I'm sure, get a lot of people, have opinions on. I think you know what it is. But about Leftwich, I said I don't expect him to be the offensive coordinator next year with Bowles. I do think there's some heat. However, if they make the playoffs, like as I've been saying, like I can't see them moving on from a guy if they win the NFC South. Like I can't do it. If they miss the playoffs, I think that's a legit conversation that will be had. However, especially if they, let's say they lose to Cincinnati, you beat Arizona, but then let's say you lose to a Carolina or something, and then Carolina wins the division. Like if that happens, sure. Like I think that conversation should be had and will be had. But if his job is relatively safe if they make the playoffs, which it's hard to believe. I still expect they're going to do.
I'll tell you this. I agree with what you said about Byron Leftwich. I don't think he's here next year. No ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, unless the Bucs win the goddamn Super Bowl by scoring 21 points, then I don't think he has a job in Tampa next season. But as far as Todd Bowles goes, I think it's going to ride on literally the end of the year. I mean, it's as simple as it gets. If they win the division, he's going to be here 100%. If they do not, and listen, this is just me. I'm just Joe Schmo. What do I know? But if they somehow lose their lead on the NFC South and miss the playoffs, everybody's gone. Like every I do not care. Everybody's gone.
Well,
all right, Jason Light may be the last man standing.
Well, and real quick, I saw something in the chat from Miguel Ramirez saying winning the division by default and backing into the playoffs should not save his job. We're not saying it should.
It shouldn't, but
in the
grand scheme of things, this is a Bucs team who has not won the NFC South. I think they've only won it once over the last decade.
Yeah, last year was the first time since 2007.
Right. Even when they won the Super Bowl in 2020, they didn't win the NFC South. So if you can hang a banner, I know people hate calling it hang a banner, but they literally hang banners in the practice facility. If you can hang an NFC South banner, even though the year has been what it is, we heard Greg Olson talk about it on the broadcast. The 7-8-1 Panthers won the division. And I think they held on to Ron Rivera after that, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like, it's really tough to justify firing a guy when you won the division.
And there's the thing. I still think if I was the owner, I'm going to be blunt here. If I was the owner, even if they make the play, unless if you win a playoff game, you win 2 playoff games, then that's different. But if they make the playoffs as a wild card team
and they're one and done,
they lose in the first round, I would still fire them.
I agree.
but they're not going to. Like, so that's what we're talking about. It's not our opinion on what we would do. It's just the facts. Like, they're not going to be firing unless that playoff game is just an absolute slaughtering.
Oh, like a 35-7.
No, like 56-0.
Oh.
Like, you know,
Hey,
like,
we've been there before, man. Real ones remember.
Unless that playoff game is just truly an embarrassment, I don't see a way that they're going to fire Todd Bowles if they make the playoffs, which, like I said, I understand there's going to be some doubters. I just think at the end of the day, they still have a better roster than both Carolina and Atlanta. That Carolina game is going to be in Tampa. I just think they have better rosters, so I still do expect them to make the playoffs. So, yes, I expect Todd Bowles to be here next year. I do not expect Byron Leftwich to be here next year.
And it's such a shame that in the position this team is in, it's 6-7, we can look at the roster and still say on paper they're better than damn near half the league, if not more. And if that isn't the biggest issue with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2022, I don't know how else to explain it to you. This is a short show today, folks. We would talk about the defense, but I mean, 200 plus rushing yards given up on the ground. The 49ers, they imposed their will.
They ran all over. I mean, they like not even like the running backs, though, like the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Like the Bucs look so slow out there. Like,
yeah, guys,
they're a fast defense, but they just look so slow. All right, real quick before we wrap up, you got to talk about the elephant in the room, because a lot of people are gonna point to it and stuff. Let's talk about Tom Brady. Did he play good? Absolutely not. Probably his worst game. However, this is, I think, the best defense in the NFL. Doesn't excuse it, but it's the best defense in the NFL.
A lot of bad throws today. Lot of bad throws today.
He missed Julio on an open one, missed Scotty on an open one. The one that a lot of people are going to point to is his end zone miss from Mike Evans, where if he kind of lobs it, Evans could beat his defender to the back of the end zone, and instead he kind of went back shoulder there. It's a weird decision. There's a difference, a big difference, between not playing well and being a bad football player. Right now, Tom Brady is not playing well. That does not mean that Tom Brady is a bad football player. I'm seeing plenty of that, oh, yep, there it is. He's done. It's over. It's over. These are the same people that want him back next year. So, like, I don't understand. Okay, like, there seems to be no in between. He played like crap today. That's true. He's not washed. Both can be true. Without him, they probably win like 2 or 3 games right now at this point. So, like,
without
today?
Listen,
no, he did not.
Let's face it. Without Tom Brady on the roster, you don't beat the Rams. You don't beat the Saints. That's already a 4-9 record compared to 6-7. And I'm sure that
you don't beat the Saints twice. That's 3.
Yeah. Damn true. So Tom Brady, his stat line looked like this today: 34 for 55, 253 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. So obviously that touchdown,
one was on him, one wasn't. One was the first one was a bad throw.
Second one was a great play by the linebacker.
The second one and the pressure, the pressure kind of got to him there. So the first one was just a brutal throw. The second one, the pressure kind of got there. So, yeah, but I mean, yeah, he didn't play well. Like he really didn't. And I know that there's something that came out today from Ian Rappaport. It's nothing to me.
I mean, it's the same report that comes out this time every year.
Well, he literally says the 3 outcomes that could possibly happen. He returns to the Bucs, he retires, or he goes elsewhere. Thanks for that great reporting. That is, I could have told you that.
You got to get the clicks, man. It's all about the clicks.
I still believe that Brady will retire. But and then, like, a lot of people are going to say, well, he's not going to be in Tampa or whatever. So he may not be. Who knows? But I believe he will retire. But he's still a good quarterback. Like, he's still good. Did he play well? No. Did he play well last week up until the last 2 drives? No. But there's been times where his team has let him down. Like, those around him have let him down. Has he let them down at times too? Absolutely. I just said it. Today, if he makes a few different throws, maybe, things change a little bit. Last week, if he makes a few different throws, do they have to score in the final seconds to win? Maybe not. So, the Baltimore game, he makes a few more throws. They win that game. There's a couple instances here. So, I mean, if you've watched every game, like, you should know this this dude is still playing at a very high level.
And
Has it been the level of 2020 and 2021? No, it hasn't.
no,
but it's still very good.
I do want to speak on the fact that he played the whole game. I think I didn't think it was necessary. I think once the score went up 35-0, he had zero business in the ball game. And I don't know if that's because Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles didn't have the balls to bench Tom Brady, or if he just told them, I'm not coming out of the game. But, you know, for the people that talk about him being washed and talk about him checking out on this team and not wanting to be there, I mean, he didn't have to play. I can tell you this, he did not have to play the third and the fourth quarter of that football game. Things were all said and done. We could have seen Blaine Gabbert, but we didn't. Now, take that for better or for worse. Take this however you like. Form your own opinion. But I do think it says something about the guy that he stayed out there until the very end.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, that's where, you know, if there's a head coach of a team, you gotta say, look, like
it's dumb that he's out there. It's dumb.
We got more football games.
Yeah,
you know? No, and his hand was banged up.
Threw the ball 55 times, and I think 20 of those were after that direct hit to the helmet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd be like, look, man, like this game ain't coming. You know, this game's done. Like we need you next week and the week after that and the week after that. Like we don't need you for this one anymore. So I understand, but I think it was pretty stupid.
Well, in the chat, I got to tell you, Brandon Burkhart says it perfectly. My sentiments exactly. We're on to Cincinnati.
There it is.
We're on to Cincinnati. Bucs Bengals next week at Raymond James Stadium. I'm going to be taking my mom to that game, so please, for the love of God, I hope that I don't have to expose my poor mother to anything like what we just saw today in Santa Clara. But the Buccaneers will be back home in Raymond James Stadium next week. 6-7 record, and you get the defending AFC champions coming to town who just got a win over the Cleveland Browns today. But lucky for us, hey, that Joe Burrow kid, he's good, but he's no Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts here? Any take bag to wrap this thing up?
Not really. The 49ers process on both offense and defense was pretty much what I expected. Really, especially early on, they didn't. I mean, Purdy made some big time throws, but the 49ers didn't force him to make a ton of difficult throws early on in the game.
Right.
A lot of quick screens, a lot of stuff to Kittle. That safety blanket there. Debo was involved early before his injury. So I expected the Bucs to be more competitive, but the 49ers process overall of how they worked on both offense and defense was kind of what I expected. Like I said, I think my biggest disappointment is the defense, because we knew, I think, that the offense, it was going to be a struggle for this team. But the defense got outclassed. And Kyle Shanahan coached circles around them. And the defense has been good this year, but I mean, it was pretty brutal on Sunday. So
yeah, I thought the 49ers today looked like probably the most well-coached unit the Bucs have seen all year. I mean, that includes,
they might be.
Yeah, that includes Kansas City, because even that game was a little bit close. The most offensive production for Tampa Bay. Like, even though they were down early, they made that a game. At no point today did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers show up to play football. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's a short show, but we've covered the bases. That's it. Usually it's a short show whenever the Bucs get their ass beat or they kick somebody else's ass, right? Because when you can come on here and say that they did everything well, all three phases, the team worked well today, that's probably what a 49ers podcast sounds like right about now. So listen, at the end of the day, we do really appreciate you guys hanging out with us live on YouTube. Got a little over 100 people in here. Shout out in the live chat, Amazement717, DS, Tyler Belcher, Austin Farrell, Amazement717, Harvinder, Dark Angel, Brian Shaw, Yeti RC, and of course, shout out our buddy Matt Diaz with the $5 super chat a little bit earlier. Anyone else I did forget, we truly do appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already for more great Tampa Bay Buccaneers content. And find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram, Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Check out his written work at bucksnation.com. I know that stock up, stock down going to be coming out this
It'll
week.
be interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's gonna be a lot more stock down than stock up.
Yeah, can we already shoe in Donovan Smith? I don't want to spoil your story, but is he going to be on the list somewhere?
I think he might make an appearance.
Yeah, all right. For better or for worse, be on the lookout for that. And ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, find myself on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We'll talk to you later this week. We will be joined by former Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Sean King. We'll get his thoughts on the 35-7 loss. And, of course, look ahead to what the Bucs are going to face in Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals back at home in Raymond James Stadium. But that's the show once again. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you so much for listening, and go Bucs.